We're here on a body of water today that I typically don't get to fish that often. What?
It's 5 minutes from your house.
I mean, come on, I'm not home that much. But we're here on Beaver Dam Lake in southeast Wisconsin. And you know, this lake is actually pretty shallow and a lot different than a lot of the bodies of water that we get to fish. I'm here with my buddy Nick Bedker, which I grew up fishing here with, and obviously Chase Parsons. It's the middle of October right now. The temperature has cooled down a lot. We just had a big cold front come through. I'm not sure how the bite's gonna be, Chase.
Are we fishing for walleyes?
We're fishing for walleyes.
Okay.
There's some good walleyes. There's some good walleyes here in Beaver Dam. I'm not sure if we're gonna catch my crankbaits, plastics, or what it's gonna be yet, but we're gonna go and find out. The water is actually, you know, pretty dirty, so I'm thinking high action baits are gonna be where it's at. We're gonna go out there today and show you the next bite. Just looking for the next bite, next bite, next bite, next bite. Just looking for the next bite.
Casting a combination of structure with low visibility underwater on a lake like Beaver Dam Lake comes with some assumptions about what a bite may be like, chiefly in terms of profile and sound.
That pro grub, huh?
Yeah.
Just smoked it, and you're just steady retrieving that thing.
Slow roll.
Awesome. Dirty water, fat walleyes.
Late fall is a time frame when walleyes are typically feeding more in anticipation of winter. Normally, the fish would be deemed more likely to be aggressive, but like any time of year, their attitude is still dominantly affected by inclement conditions.
Today we're out here on Beaver Dam Lake. You know, this is pretty much my home body of water. I only live a few miles from here. This lake is very long and narrow. I'd say it's about 14 miles long, you know, maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles wide at the very most, but very shallow. You know, 7 feet maybe in the springtime, higher water, but right now here in middle of October, you know, 5.5, maybe 6 foot is all you're gonna find towards the middle. It's very featureless. You know, there's a lot of mud, and most of this lake was, you know, basically a marsh before the dam got put up. So anytime the wind blows, it gets very muddy, and it also gets a big time algae bloom in the summertime. So we're always dealing with dirty water. So what we're looking for out here this time frame is fishing shallow rock. There's not a ton of it, but there is some islands and some points that do have some rock on it. And I think these fish are relating to that rock is because it absorbs some heat. You know, the water is cooling off this time of year, so those fish want to be near some of the warmer areas, and that's where that rock is going to be. But this rock in this lake is very shallow. You know, with it only being about 6 feet at the deepest, a lot of the rock is, you know, maybe 6 inches to maybe 3 foot at, you know, the deeper edges of a lot of this rock. So it's very shallow rock, but that's what we're really targeting on here on Beaver Dam Lake to try to find these walleyes.
It's got to be a bass. Nope. Big bass.
Nick, you got one?
I got a fish too. I got a nice walleye.
Come on. There you go.
Yeah.
How's that fair?
What do you got, Chase?
Come on.
Wasn't getting off.
Nope. Smoked it.
Come on.
Need a pliers, Sprengel?
Another nice walleye. Look at the dorsal fin, how tall that is compared to that fish.
Yeah, it's kind of like a peacock or something with that fin sticking up so high.
You're just slow rolling it, or are you?
Slow rolling it, yeah.
All right, let's get another one. I think we found a little squirrel. Get back. See you, bye.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury Marine. Go boldly. Tracker boats. Fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here. Berkeley. Catch more fish. And Motor Guide. Accuracy matters. Closed captioning for the next bite is provided by Power Pole, the ultimate in shallow water anchors. A more subtle action is surprisingly and yet sensibly making all the difference in triggering these Beaver Dam Lake walleyes.
Definitely the water's cooling down and these fish are putting on the feed bag. I mean, one thing that's really amazing is how they can find that little subtle bait in this dirty water.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd absolutely think they'd want a crankbait or something.
Something with noise.
Rattles, anything.
Yeah.
But no, just a little subtle, grub, probably one of the most overlooked walleye baits ever.
Absolutely.
Possibly.
Yeah. There's one. This one's it's probably gonna be, it's tough to tell. It's going crazy. There we go. Nice. He's off, perfect. That one's interesting. A little bit skinnier than the rest,
Yeah.
huh?
Most of them are pretty healthy anyway.
I would catch a skinny one. Just mimic my body shape.
Yeah, right? Look at the dorsal fin.
Yeah. I don't know. We're going to just get that one back. In a scenario like this, 1 to 3 foot rocks, a lot of snags. One of the things that I always like to do is cast crankbaits at that. I mean, it's a lot of fun when you're casting crankbaits. You can cover water. But what we've seen today, it's been warm all fall. Now it's getting a little cooler. And we've seen subtle action baits really take over and catch more fish. I mean, Korey and I started with crankbaits. Nick basically was throwing a subtle action plastic tail, and he started just crushing us, quite frankly. So we all changed over. And what we looked at throwing here is something real subtle, but it's a pretty large profile. It's that Berkley Pro grub tail, a little bit larger grub than some other ones, but we're coupling that with a small jig head. And we're simply just casting this bait out there and letting it slow roll. Just a steady retrieve has seemed to be the best, and they're just destroying it. So when you're dealing with cold front conditions like this, even though typically you might want to cast crankbaits to rocks like this and it catches a lot of fish at many times, if you're not getting those bites on a high action bait that's got a lot of vibration, sometimes just slowing it down, something a little bit more subtle like this Pro grub tail, can put more fish in the boat. Oh, this one smoked it. This is a good one.
Good fish.
Is he taking me to the front?
I don't know. Coming around
Coming
the
to the
front.
front? Other side, I'd go to the other side. Good one?
It feels decent, yeah.
Good head shakes there. This is a good fish.
Oh yeah.
Nice fish.
That one had a lot of heart, huh?
He did.
Over weird, he just...
Came around the whole front of the boat.
There we go. Boy, he wasn't hooked much. Look at that. Just barely right in the corner of the top there.
I bet you hit it hard though.
Oh, he smoked it. Just smoked it. Oh, man. I mean, I got to admit, I wasn't paying that much attention. I just kind of casted it out there and working it slow and kind of looking at the trees or something. And boom!
I mean, they don't mess around with
Yeah, no, that was pretty easy one to tell that wasn't a rock, right? All right. Oh, it's so much fun. There we go. Oh, yeah. Down to the depths of 5 feet.
Sight Bites. Real-time fishing information from all the pros in one place at walleyechatter.com.
One of the new baits that I'm very excited about using is this new Berkley Snap Jig. It's on the same platform of glide baits that a lot of us are used to fishing for walleye, but the first thing you're going to notice about this bait is that we have a plastic on here, or a tail. This particular one I have rigged up with a 3-inch switchtail minnow, which I think is probably the best tail for this bait. So what this is going to allow us to do is change actions, different colors very fast, but the biggest thing about about this bait that I really love is that this is a lightweight bait. You know, it comes in sizes from 3/16 up to that 3/8 ounce size, but this is that missing link in the glide baits that we did not have, is a lightweight version that we can fish shallow water around vegetation. This bait doesn't have any treble hooks on it, so it's going to go through that weeds very easily. And so we can cast them out there, we can vertical jig it, but the first thing you're going to notice is how light this bait is. It's going to take very little of that snapping motion because it is so light to basically move that bait through the water. We're going to be able to walk the dog, that very erratic action, you know, that fling bait fish kind of thing that really triggers fish to bite. So this new snap jig is going to be that lightweight version of a glide bait that we always wish we had.
This late fall, shallow water walleye pattern may be one of the simplest techniques Chase, Korey, and Nick have ever had such tremendous success on.
Oh yeah, good fish. Woo!
But only in terms of the casting presentation.
Come on, Chase.
I can't even see him. That's a good one. I don't think there was any doubt on that one, huh?
No, we crushed it.
And way out there too. You
Way
must have
out.
barely got any cranks in it.
One
Just
crank. We
Yeah.
smoked it.
Look at that jig. It's gone.
Beaver Dam Lake can not only be shallow in places, but with very large subsurface boulders. And while this type of structure is proving great for ambushing walleyes,
I mean, it's so funny how they fight too. You can tell instantly when they're walleyes because they hit and then they just start swimming out to the
cruise
side
out,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, it's so awesome catching them in shallow water like this.
doing your homework first to safely navigate waters like this
There's one.
is what makes it possible to enjoy this straight retrieve technique both productively and safely.
Yeah, this is a good one here.
Did you just stump that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, this is dandy.
Not as big as I thought, but you just choked it. God, there's no missing it in this dirty water. They just smoked that thing.
Now when they find it, they crush it. Pretty fish.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so fun. Like, you know, basically we're fishing 1.5 feet of water, I think, on top of those rocks, maybe only a foot. So as soon as your jig hits the water, sometimes, boom, you just get slapped. And it's so fun when they hit plastics. You're just reeling it nice and slow, all of a sudden something just lights you up. Boom. Let's get another one. So here on Beaver Dam Lake, you know, this lake, like I said earlier, is a very shallow, featureless lake. It's very muddy. And, you know, there's not a lot of offshore structure or anything like that. But what we're focusing on is trying to find these rocks. You know, one thing I like to look at is you pay attention to the shorelines. You know, if there's any rocks or big boulders that are on the edge of a shoreline or an island or something like that, it's going to give me an idea that there might be some bigger rocks or boulders underneath the water. What I'm going to use is my side imaging for 2 reasons. A lot of these rocks that are on Beaver Dam are very shallow, and shallow enough where you can't even float your boat over top of them without hitting bottom. So I want to use my side imaging to allow me to understand where these rocks come off of, allow me to map them out, but also tell me where I don't want to drive my boat over. And as you can see here, I took a screenshot of my side imaging. As I can see on the bottom where I just drove over this point, I can see it extends out. You know, I just drove over almost the tip of it, but as I look to the right here, the side imaging got very black and almost like it wasn't quite working. It just got blanked out. What that's telling me is it's very shallow there. And I'd say that would be definitely less than 1 foot. You know, as I kept going here, I went over another little bar. There's a lot of fence lines and a lot of little rock bars that kind of broke up the fields before this lake was made here. Now I look on the left-hand side, it's also blacked out again, telling me it's very shallow. So as you can see on my GPS portion here, I mapped out these rocks and how they lie. So that way, when it comes back to fishing and allowing me to drive through some of these areas, I'm not going to hit my boat. I'm also going to be placing my jigs in the right areas at the right times.
There's one, boys.
That's
Yeah, I think it's going to be the right flavor. Yep.
some wide head shakes there,
Yeah.
CP.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Nice fish.
That one was weird though. I kind of picked it up. I casted it out there and it just like hit bottom, and I gave it a slow crank and I could just kind of feel it like swim a little bit. It didn't thump it or anything. It kind of hit it right on the fall. That's the right kind for sure. That was fun. Look at that. That's a good fish. I mean, there's a lot of
Beautiful
lakes.
fish.
There's a lot of lakes we go to all over the country, and I mean, that's a good length fish pretty much anywhere.
That's a nice fish, Chase.
Obviously, you go to Erie, you catch monsters, but little lake like this,
Yeah,
you take them like that
anytime
all
you
day.
can catch it on a jig rod,
Yeah.
I mean, it's always fun.
There you go. Oh, yeah.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury Marine. Go boldly. Tracker Boats. Fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here. Berkeley. Catch more fish. Lowrance. Find, navigate, dominate. Motor Guide Trolling Motors, engineered for anglers. Strike King, legacy of domination for 50 years. And Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. Hot topics, leading information, and tackle and techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
One thing to always keep in mind when it comes to trolling is speed is so related to how many fish you catch. And the target speed you want to go can change at different periods of time in the year. When it's cold, typically you want to go slower. When it's warm, you want to go a little bit quicker. But one of the things that a lot of anglers may have situations with are they might have a small aluminum boat where all they have is that main outboard on their boat. They may not even have a bow mount. They may just be going out, doing some drifting, trying to maintain speeds. And one of the things you can do no matter what size outboard you have is use that outboard to not only help you steer in a drift troll, but also slow the boat down or speed it up depending on what you need to do. The first thing I'd like to talk about is if you do need to slow the boat down, the waves that you're trolling with, that you're drifting with, are just pushing the boat a little bit too fast. It's as simple as doing this. You're going to trim that outboard as far down as you can get it, because the more surface area that's in the water, obviously more drag. It's going to slow the boat down a little bit. The second thing is if you have that motor all the way down and you're still looking at wanting to go a little bit slower, simply put that engine in gear. All that's going to do is lock that prop in place, more surface area that's not moving down there, it's not spinning as you're drifting, it's staying stationary, it's going to slow the boat down a little bit more. If the waves aren't pushing you fast enough to what you want to go, the opposite. Just basically trim that motor up out of the water. If that lower unit's not down there dragging, you're basically going to have that boat drift a little bit quicker. So small speed adjustments you can actually achieve with just the outboard. And then of course if you're in a drift, very simply that outboard becomes a rudder on the angle that you're going to drift at the waves. Simply turning it with that outboard all the way down to the right is going to make you drift a little bit to the right, just using it simply as a rudder. So not only does just simply an outboard motor like this Mercury 125 Optimax help you adjust speeds with the drift, but it also help you basically drift in the right direction that you want to go to catch more walleyes.
It's kind of crazy how in walleye fishing, sometimes hindsight can make patterning details seem obvious when they weren't at all from the start. There is no doubt dirty water means focusing on profile, color, and sound. However, now we can add water temperature as a secondary consideration.
He hit something fierce there, but thought he was a lot bigger than he was. But just another one of them chunky Beaver Dam walleyes.
Since these Beaver Dam Lake walleyes are preferring the lower key, slow-rolled grubs to the vibration and racier action of crankbaits, in congruence with cooling fall water temperatures.
I think there's nothing left of that old jig in there. I mean, when they're committing on these things, it's just crazy how hard they hit it.
So we're basically using typical jigging equipment. This is a 6.5 foot medium action rod, Bass Pro Patriot, something that's real light, helps with the sensitivity, a nice light reel, just something that's very easy to handle all day long. And basically what we're doing is we're just throwing these jigs and slow rolling these baits over the top of the rocks. But one of the key things, and probably the most important part about this setup, is to use a no stretch line. This is a Fireline Ultra 8, and basically what it is it's almost a combination of Fireline and Nanofill. You're gonna get the long castability of like a Nanofill, but you're gonna get more strength. You're gonna basically have that Fireline strength. Obviously these rocks, you're gonna get a lot of snags. You're able to get the lures out very easily. But the other thing too is using a no stretch line like this Fireline 8 simply allows you to feel the difference very easily between a rock and a fish. You're tick, 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 tick over the top of the rocks, and some of these walleyes explode on the bait and just poof. Some of them just suck that bait in real lightly, so you can easily tell the difference if you use something like this Fireline Ultra 8. So typical jigging gear, no stretch line, slow roll these pro grubs over the top of rocks, shallow rocks, catch a lot of walleyes.
It's looking decent, whatever it is.
What do you think?
Bass again?
Not sure.
No, let's swim
That,
this side
that
like
looks
a
right.
walleye.
Yep, that one looks right.
Yeah, you better net that thing.
Yep.
Staying down.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Where's the bait?
Yeah, it's gone. He's not very happy right now. Oh, that was pretty easy.
Yeah, I know, right?
There you go, man. That is a
Thanks,
good
Chase.
fish.
Just chunks.
You know what? It's pretty awesome you guys invited me here. I never fished this lake. I know you guys have about 80 million times before, but
I was a little worried with this. It's cooler weather though.
you know what? Anywhere in Wisconsin, obviously other than the bay, there right there's a nice walleye.
Beautiful fish. Yeah.
Especially on the old jig stick.
Yep. Let's get that one back, boys. Stay hot, Sprengel. Keep snagging those carp. That's what we're here for, folks. Am I everything you need? You better rock your body right, everybody. Yeah. Try not to make the first minute and a half an autobiography, but I like it.
All right.
No, it was fine.
How long is it supposed to be? How long is it supposed to be?
Good job, Korey. Keep her going.
Now, though, it's a lot different than you actually get that bait to dart around down there.
The next bite would like to thank the fishermen and family-friendly American Lodge and Suites of Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, located near the shores of Beaver Dam Lake, making it an ideal location to explore southeastern Wisconsin. For more information or reservations, call 920-356-9000.